After my boyfriend proposed to my stepsister right in front of me, I ran to a bar to drink away the heartbreak. One thing led to another, and I ended up having a one-night stand with a stranger. The next morning, I woke up to find a massive ring on my left hand. I think it must be a toy, but where did that come from? 2 days after returning to work, I walked in at 10 to 8, keeping my head down, dodging everyone. I wasn't ready to answer any questions about my vacation. As soon as I reached my desk, I powered up my computer and began scanning through my 102 unread emails. It was the price I paid for taking a week off. I opened the newest emails first, but nothing too important stood out, just memos, parking updates, and meeting notices. Then my eyes stopped on an email with the subject line, transfer notice. My heart sank. I skimmed the email quickly, too quickly. When I read it again, it still didn't make sense at first. Our CEO, the one I worked for as his assistant, was being transferred to another branch. I was supposed to go with him. Tears pricked my eyes. First my boyfriend, now this. Everything I loved about my life was here. My friends, my career, even my favorite hairdresser. I didn't want to leave. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elena walking toward me. Elena, who had been vying for my job ever since she started here. She was stunning, could have anything and anyone she wanted, but she was fixated on taking the one thing I had, my position. Her cleavage seemed to arrive before the rest of her. Hey, Hazel, she said, flashing her teeth. Her friendliness felt fake, and I was instantly wary. I heard you're leaving us soon, she said, pouting dramatically. That's too bad. Ah well, I guess I'll be the new CEO's assistant. I hear he has much better taste than the last one. My face flushed with irritation. Yeah, I just saw the email, I said curtly, hoping she'd leave me alone. But then something happened that completely caught me off guard. The door opened, and in walked Logan. My jaw practically hit the floor. He was tall, dark, and devastatingly handsome, his pinstripe suit hugging his frame perfectly. He had this commanding air about him, and instantly, everyone in the room's attention shifted to him. Excuse me, everyone, he said, his voice deep and authoritative. My name is Logan. I am your new CEO. We'll be having a meeting in the conference room in 5 minutes. He turned to leave. Elena, never one to miss an opportunity, quickly brushed past me, heading for the conference room. I sighed, already dreading what came next. Minutes later, Logan stood in front of us, his icy gaze sweeping the room. We were all in line, a mix of top employees from the General Affairs Department, handpicked to interview for the new assistant role. Unfortunately, Elena was in the lineup too. Good morning, Logan greeted us, his tone as cold as the rest of his demeanor. You all know why you're here. Introduce yourselves and tell me what you've accomplished here. We'll start with you, he said, pointing to Gary at the far end of the line. As Gary spoke, Elena subtly adjusted her posture, pushing her chest out, trying to show off as much cleavage as possible. I suppressed a groan. She was always trying to get ahead by using her looks. I smoothed my skirt with my hands. I couldn't deny that I was a little uneasy about my more professional attire. Blazer, skirt, black-rimmed glasses. Men often preferred Elena's sexy attire to my low-key wardrobe, and it was no secret she received many opportunities over me because of it. After Gary finished his introduction, just as Elena opened her mouth to speak, Logan held up his hand. You're no longer a candidate for this position, he said, cutting her off. The room fell silent. No one dared move, and I could hardly believe what I'd just heard. Elena's eyes widened. But, I haven't even had a conversation with you yet. This isn't fair, she stammered, clearly flustered. I had to stifle a laugh. I had never seen Elena so off balance. Logan looked at the rest of us, a hint of amusement in his cold gaze. Can anyone tell her why she's been eliminated so quickly? He asked. I couldn't resist. You're wearing a ring on your left hand, I said, trying not to smile. Logan raised his hand, showing the ring on his finger. Very good, Logan said, nodding at me. 1 point for you. His words were approving, but his expression remained impassive. He turned back to Elena. I'm a married man. As a secretary, you shouldn't be trying to be overly familiar with your married boss. It's unprofessional. Elena, who was always so composed, stood there with her arms crossed, a frown plastered on her face. I couldn't hide the satisfaction I felt watching her crumble. I was practically floating as Logan turned to me, skipping over the candidates between us. Please, tell me a little about yourself, he said, his voice still as cool as ever. I smiled, introducing myself and listing my accomplishments. He didn't react much. His expression stayed frozen, but I figured that meant he was listening. After I finished, Logan gave a small nod. I'll give all of you a 2-week assessment period, after which I'll select the person who best fits the role. One of my colleagues, Ethan, asked immediately, what will the first assessment be? I rolled my eyes. He was just trying to show off, but Logan's face tightened, and he frowned at Ethan. I didn't schedule a QA session, he said curtly, but as for your first task, you'll help me plan my first official date with my wife. The room was silent for a moment. A date with his wife. My mind was racing as Logan left. Once the door closed, Elena muttered, I can't believe he's married. He's supposed to be the bachelor of the century, and he settled for one woman. Something's off. She glanced over at me, her eyes narrowing. Nice smile, Hazel, but I wouldn't get too cocky. I hear you have a habit of losing the men you manage to impress. Her words hit harder than I expected. Speaking of that Vegas trip you took recently, I heard you had a romantic getaway. What happened? Haven't heard a thing about it since, she added, smirking. My face went hot. The Vegas trip. Was she onto something?